In this sales funnel creation blueprint, you're going to learn the different types of sales funnels that you have to choose from, what makes up a successful sales funnel, and how to get up and running with one as quickly as possible. Hey, I'm Jason, and if you're looking for the latest in traffic and conversion strategies to help grow your business, make sure you hit that subscribe button. So let's go ahead and kick things off with what on earth a sales funnel actually is, and then go through the differences between launch funnels, webinar funnels, and any other type of funnel you may have heard about in the past. Timestamp table of contents in the description. So for our purposes here, I always like to keep things simple. So the definition of our sales funnel is going to be a strategic process for transforming a stranger into a customer by building rapport, trust, and authority. And that's pretty much it. It's just an automated process of taking someone who has no idea who you and your business are to a happy customer. And all the bells and whistles are just designed to do that. Now, taking a look at this diagram, there are two key components to this process. There's the traffic portion, which we will talk about in another video, and the conversion portion, which is what we're going to focus on here with this sales funnel creation guide. So at the very top, we have prospects, and prospects represent everyone who could be a potential customer. So not literally everyone in the world, and they're just across the web. And so our job with advertising and content marketing is to bring them in, warm them up, build brand awareness, and then eventually have them be a part of our audience, meaning they're following our social channel or they're constantly engaging with our content. And then once we have them as an audience member, this is where the conversion part of the process or the sales funnel of the process starts to take over, because we want to turn them into a lead. And someone becomes a lead once we have their contact information. And once we have that contact information, either by phone or email, we follow up, and then we start our sales and warm-up process, and eventually, hopefully, they purchase our product or service. And so that's all that's going on here. And this next diagram illustrates this in a linear fashion. So for prospects, we have all of the different social channels and content channels you might be using, whether you're doing advertising or just organic posts. And all of those drive to something called a squeeze page. And on the squeeze page, this is where we collect their contact information, and they go from being a prospect audience member to a lead. And the lead generation or the lead warm-up process from lead to customer will just vary depending upon the price of your product and also whatever your business is. So let's go ahead, leave the traffic and ad side and content marketing side alone for now, and zero in on what we're doing with our actual funnel. Now, the squeeze page that kicks off our funnel offers something called a lead magnet. And a lead magnet is something valuable that people believe is worth exchanging their contact information for. Once they've gotten the lead magnet, you'll use an email sequence of 5 to 7 emails to try and drive them to something called a sales page. Now, the sales page is where you're actually going to sell your product or service. It links over to the shopping cart, and then you'll have upsells and downsells. We'll get to that at the very end of this training. And then, of course, your product and service after the checkout process. Now, the sequence of squeeze page to lead magnet or opt-in offer to emails to a sales message to a checkout process to a product or service with happy customers at the end of it represents every type of sales funnel that you have ever heard of. Now, when sales funnels begin to have different names, this is because it's just explaining the value and the sales part of, or the sales messaging of the sales funnel. So here's what I mean. In this particular instance, we're looking at a text-based sales funnel. This is just a normal sales letter funnel because the medium of our core sales message is in written form. Now, this next one here, if we were doing our sales message in a video, then it would be called a VSL funnel. And all we're doing is we're taking the exact same information that would be on a text-based sales letter and putting it into a video. The only difference is the sales letter might not have as much value as a video. So what you're doing here is with anything you're doing with video, you're actually taking the value you deliver in the lead magnet and the sales message and putting them together in one video presentation. Now, if you've heard of a webinar funnel, it's the exact same thing as what we just talked about. The only difference is the sales message is being delivered on a webinar. And this, of course, also applies to a launch funnel. You're taking the exact same information that you would have in a lead magnet or a text sales letter and cutting it up into multiple videos. Now, of course, you can get more fancy, and I'll get to what the back end is in a moment here. Now, this is an example of an advanced, overly complex webinar sales funnel, where someone is actually going to see multiple videos before they see the webinar. And then if they don't immediately purchase, they're dropped into another sequence with a lot more value and a lot more content. And yeah, this might look really cool, but it's not something you need in the beginning. When we get to the MVF method, you'll see that all of this comes later. Now, I quickly want to address something that's a buzzword when we talk about sales funnels, and that is the back end. You may have heard that you're just supposed to break even on the front end and then make all your money on the back end. Well, what is the back end actually in reality, and what does it look like? So imagine the process we've just gone through, whether you're going to do text, a video, a launch sequence, a webinar, it really doesn't matter, and then just taking that process and duplicating it with people who've already purchased a product or service. And that's the back end. So really all a back end is offering more products and services to your current customers. There's really nothing revolutionary about this. The reason you hear so much about the back end is because it's very expensive to run advertising to get cold people to go all the way through the sales funnels that we've just talked about. So most people, and we'll get to this when we talk about the average transaction value for your upsells, most marketers are just trying to sell a product or service at the end of their first funnel that covers the cost of all their advertising. And that's pretty much what you'd call a front-end funnel, and then doing the exact same funnel process with people who are already on your email list. Presumably, you're going to make more money because it's a lot cheaper to send emails. Now, the good news is you don't have to build any of these complex things, and you really don't even need to worry about putting together a webinar or a launch sequence or a video sales letter for that matter, because the MVF method has you covered. So this is something that we use internally for ourselves when we're testing out a new traffic source or product or service, and we do this for clients. So here's how it works. You only need two things to start building your sales funnel. We'll go through the whole process, but these first two things are the most important part, and arguably you want to build these two before you do anything else. And the first thing you want to do is build your lead magnet as a PDF and your squeeze page. And that's it. You don't even need an email sequence. And the reason is because when you're just getting started, you're trying to figure out what you should offer. The lead magnet is what powers this entire process. The wrong lead magnet, the wrong free offer, it doesn't matter what comes after it. It doesn't matter how good your emails are. It doesn't matter how good your sales letter is. If someone hits your squeeze or landing page and they see what you're offering and they say, nah, I'm good, then nothing happens. There's no engine. There's no one in the back end. There's no one going through upsell sequences. And so focusing in on what is the lead magnet that's going to get me the best cost per lead or get me the most people into this process is the very first question you want to answer. So as we go through this particular sales funnel blueprint, we're going to be going through two different funnels. We're going to be going through a funnel where you're trying to book a sales or strategy call, as with this diagram, and then we're going to be going through a more traditional style funnel where you're driving traffic to a text-based sales letter, and then you'll have a checkout sequence after that, or you'll have a call after that, whatever your sales process winds up being. Either way, the very first step is understanding who your customer actually is. And so there's three parts to understanding your customer, and these three parts relate to the two parts of your entire sales funnel process. So with this diagram here, you're looking at the three components of a customer avatar. We're not gonna take a deep dive here, links in the description. Make sure you subscribe to the channel for how to put together a customer avatar. But the first question you wanna answer is just what content are they actually consuming? Like, where are they already spending their time online? This is going to help you with your advertising. It's also going to help you with your content strategy. Then you're going to want to use a tool like Facebook's Audience Insights or Google Analytics to get a better understanding of the actual demographics of who you should be targeting with your advertising. And then the final two questions here is what we're going to focus on, because this is the conversion part, and that is what are the big results that they're after and what roadblocks are they experiencing. And so this is going to be a 15 to 20 minute exercise that you're going to want to do before you build a single page, before you write a single email. This is where a successful sales funnel starts, with these two questions. And so to help illustrate how easy these questions can be used to create a sales funnel and all of your copy, let's go ahead and go through an example of someone who's trying to grow a YouTube channel. So first we want to look at, if someone's trying to grow a YouTube channel, what results are they after? Like, why do they want to grow a YouTube channel? Presumably, these types of people are entrepreneurs or want to be independent, location independent, and work on their own schedule, just wake up and make videos because that's what they enjoy doing. Okay, great. So what do they think, not what we think, but what would someone in that situation think is getting in the way of being able to just be full-time on their YouTube channel as a YouTube creator? Well, they probably think they need to get more views, they need to get more subscribers, maybe they think they need to rank their videos better, maybe they want to get more into suggested videos so that more people can find their channel, or maybe they just really worried about the quality of their videos. These are all legitimate concerns that a small YouTuber would have in looking at larger channels trying to figure out how they can get to where they want to go. And this is as complex as this exercise needs to be. And then all we need to do in order to transform these into some simple copywriting and language patterns to be used across the rest of our sales funnel, we can use these two formulas. The first one is how to result without hard part, and the second one is how to result even if. Now in the example here, I'll just go through two of them. You can always pause, timestamp table of contents. The first one we have, how to grow your channel without getting lots of views. And this would be a great example of what you could use as the foundation for coming up with a lead magnet idea, and you could actually just use this as a headline on your landing or squeeze page. Now, you might not use all of these, but it's important to remember that the entire purpose of the sales funnel is to transform a prospect into a customer. And the way that you're going to do that is by actually connecting with them, speaking their language, and showing that you can be helpful. But you can't do that if you don't understand the problems and struggles of whatever they're dealing with on their path to whatever success they're trying to achieve. And so all of these language patterns, so for example, our second one here, how to rank, or second to last one here, how to rank your videos even if you have a small channel, that could be an entire email. You could write an entire email about, hey, you know what? A lot of people think that they have to have a big channel to rank videos. Here's a story of how I was able to rank a video when I had a small channel. And right there, you're going to have plenty of ideas for whether you're trying to come up with ideas for your sales messages or trying to come up with ideas for upsell offers or even emails. So these are going to be instrumental in helping you fill out your funnel with the right kind of copy that connects with your potential customers. So once we have this, we're ready to focus on what's going to power our sales funnel, and that is the lead magnet. So a good lead magnet solves a problem. And since you already have a list of roadblocks and problems that your ideal customer is dealing with, you want to choose one that you can solve the fastest. You pretty much want instant, as close to instant results as possible, even if it's not super realistic for whatever niche or industry that you're in. You're going to want to choose the one that you can essentially just give them a quick win, because the best way to get someone to actually consider doing business with you is to, well, just help them before you ask for money. So in this particular instance, we're going to be focused on using a lead magnet to demonstrate our value. Now, I recommend starting with some sort of PDF style lead magnet as opposed to trying to write a full-blown webinar or 4 or 5-part launch sequence, but we'll go through both. In both instances, you're delivering value first. It's very important that you actually solve their problem. Otherwise, they're going to see that the lead magnet just has a bunch of fluff information. It doesn't really help them, and then they don't go through the rest of the process. So I can't stress enough, the lead magnet powers this entire sales funnel process, no matter what type of funnel you are using. So in this particular instance, we have 3 ideas here. The first one can be an audit. So you can come up with a series of questions or just a simple checklist that someone could go through to figure out what they're doing right and what they're doing wrong. And essentially with an audit, all you want to do is show them that, hey, you have a problem and it's much bigger than you thought. So here's all the holes in what you're doing, and here's how to plug some of them. You don't have to solve literally every single problem that you point out in the audit, but the audit's main goal is to just show them what isn't working or what they might be doing wrong in their situation. The next type is a case study. This is great if you're doing a services-based business, and this is essentially where you will show a transformation story of either yourself or a previous client. Now, if you don't have a previous client, then just don't bother with the case study. But essentially what you want to do here is show that someone who's in a similar situation as your new lead was able to achieve the result that your lead was looking for. Now finally here we have a report, and this is simply where you're just going to crunch a bunch of numbers or do a bunch of research for your ideal customer and just hand them the data and research on a silver platter. A perfect example of this is financial advisors who provide stock tips. So instead of their potential clients going out and spending hours through spreadsheets and reading 10Ks, they can just enter their name and email and get a list of stocks that would be best for them to buy, depending upon what they're trying to do, retirement, or they're being more aggressive. Now, if you're going to do a video style funnel, presentation, webinar, 4-part series, you could even just have a series of testimonials, which would pretty much be the video version of a case study. But with the first 3 here, what you're doing is you're delivering some sort of training or value, and then you sell. So we'll get to the sales process later, but we're going to focus on the first part of the video, which is going to be value, and it has to actually be valuable. So you're going to need to put in the same amount of effort you would if you were doing a PDF. And once you know what your lead magnet is going to be, you're ready for the first part of the funnel, which is actually going to be the squeeze page. And the squeeze page is where you're going to collect someone's contact information. And of course, no one's going to want to enter their contact information on the squeeze page if what you're offering on the squeeze page, the lead magnet, isn't really enticing. Now, before we dive into the core elements of a squeeze page and what type of information you should ask for, you may have heard of a landing page before as well, and a landing page and a squeeze page are both designed to do the same thing: collect contact information. The difference is a landing page is going to have a lot more text, and it's going to be a lot more work to put together. And by a lot, I say maybe it's an hour or 2 difference, but when you're just getting started, all you need is a squeeze page, and all a squeeze page needs is a headline, an optional subheadline, and by the way, the headline can be any one of those sentence formulas we came up with earlier, a picture of your lead magnet, whether it's a video or a PDF, and then of course a place for them to enter their contact information. Now, when it comes to what type of contact information you should be asking for, as a general rule of thumb, the more information you ask for, the less leads and potential customers you're going to get entering their contact information. So at bare minimum, you just need an email address, and you'll be maximizing the number of people that enter in their contact information. The more you ask for, the less people will enter their contact information. Now, if you're doing a sales process where you're actually going to get on the phone with someone and you need to know some information, you can always ask for that later in the process. There's nothing bad about just asking for a name and email up front and then asking them to fill out a pre-call survey or application before you actually spend your time with them on the phone. So here's a brief example of what a squeeze page could look like using our YouTube example. How to grow your channel without getting lots of views, straight from the formula, and then the subheadline, get instant access to the complete YouTube growth blueprint so you can make 2019 your breakout year. And the phrase, so you can make X year your breakout year, is something that you can use in almost any niche and industry. Of course, you just want to make sure that you do update your squeeze pages and landing pages when the year changes. And with that, you are good to go with the MVF funnel, minimum viable funnel. I forgot to say that earlier. And that's all you need to get started. So once you have that, you can start running traffic, you can start on your content marketing plan, and you'll be able to create multiple of these with nothing in the back. It's kind of like those spaghetti western sets where you see this nice looking town, but then you look behind it and it's just a bunch of stilts holding up this flat building. That's how you want to build your funnels, because if you don't know if someone's actually going to come into the building yet, why spend all the time and energy building a nice house if they actually like the one across the street? So if you build a lot of these, then you're going to figure out which one people actually enter their name and email into, and then you can easily build out the rest of the funnel from there. And the first thing you probably put together is your email sequence. Now, email marketing is an entire video in and of itself, so let's just go ahead and go through this simple 5-message sequence that you can use for yourself. Of course, you feel free to pause. I'm briefly going to go over it. And the very first email simply delivers the blueprints, the PDF, the case study, the report, and then reiterates what was said on the squeeze page. Hey, this is really going to be helpful to you. Then email number 2 can talk about a big challenge that they're potentially going to face if they don't take action, if they don't try and solve the problems and overcome the roadblocks that you identified. So again, we're going to be using those roadblocks and desired results throughout this entire funnel. Then the next email is just a story of success. It could be yours, it could be a customer's, or it could be hypothetical. If you do hypothetical, make sure you make it clear that it's hypothetical. Don't just make up a story and say that it's real. And then the next couple of emails will just harp on some benefits of the paid offer. And of course, these emails will change slightly if you did a report or if you're doing a webinar or a launch sequence. Obviously, a launch sequence, you're going to have more emails because you're going to be releasing videos over an extended period of time. And all of these emails are going to be driving leads to your sales message or your booking page. So if you're doing strategy or sales calls, then you want to use something like Book Like a Boss or Calendly in order to automate this process. And then you would ask for all the information you'd want before you get on the phone with someone. For any other type of product or service, you drive them back to the webinar, you drive them back to the last video in your launch sequence, drive them back to your VSL, drive them back to your text-based sales letter. Of course, I recommend starting with a text-based sales letter. And if you don't know how to write a sales letter, like most people, because it's not something we're taught in school, you can go over to Amazon and for $13, you can get all of the basic training you need to write your first sales letter. The Ultimate Sales Letter by Dan Kennedy is an absolute goldmine when it comes to understanding the basics of copywriting and how to structure your entire sales message, irrespective of what medium you've chosen. Now, this is where the webinar and video medium comes in, because when we talked about lead magnets, we just talked about the value portion. That's going to be the first part of the video. And then the second part of the video is going to be sales. The Ultimate Sales Letter has all of the copywriting formulas that you need to create a webinar, to create a launch sequence, or a VSL. You really don't need any fancy paid training after that. Just save your cash for actually driving traffic. And that is the entire process of taking an audience person to transforming them into a lead, driving them to your sales message, and of course, hopefully, we hope that they actually book a strategy call with you or click buy. And so what comes next is after someone has said yes and you have their payment information. Key, you need to have their payment information before you start doing this. And this is something called upsells. And you've probably heard upsells made synonymous with a funnel. And really, upsells are just one piece of the funnel. It doesn't make up the entire funnel. And all an upsell is a way of increasing the average transaction value. Now, when we talked about front end versus back end and trying to cover your advertising costs, this is another strategy advanced marketers use in order to afford to pay for more traffic to drive through this entire process. So here's an example of the math and how it works out and why upsells are so powerful. Make sure you subscribe because we're going to be doing a lot of videos on how to be successful with upsells, specifically the types of upsells you should have in your funnel. Now, let's say you have a low price product and it's $25. 10 people buy, your average transaction value is $25. Well, what if we added 2 other offers? One at $50, one at $200, and let's say just 1 out of 3 people looked at the $50 offer after they paid $25 and said, yeah, okay, that makes sense. Okay, I'll buy. And then they buy and they spend $75 instead of just $25. And then let's say 1 out of 10 people take us up on the $200 offer. We have a big spender, somewhere in our lead list. Well, all of a sudden, our transaction value or average transaction value has gone from just $25 all the way up to $60 without running more traffic, without writing more emails, without another sales letter, just by simply saying, hey, you just bought this, I think you would like this. And of course, there are a couple nuances here, but that's really all an upsell is. So thank you so much for watching. I sincerely hope you got some value out of this video. Make sure you check out the timestamp table of contents in the description to skip around and go back to certain parts. And really, the MVF method is so powerful when you're just getting started. You really only need to figure out what type of lead magnet to make, and then put up a squeeze page and see if it works. So go ahead and hit that like button, subscribe for more deep dive sales funnel videos just like this one, and until the next, keep building the business you love.